That's the one.
I'm just gonna do it. Click that button. All right. Cool. We have a very short agenda today. I'm gonna share my screen. Let me know when you guys see it.
It's there.
It's there. All right. PSP removal and pod isolation policy stage. Who added this item?
I think Mike Denise did.
Okay. So,
Pod isolation.
wait, should we, so PSP replacement discussion.
Oh,
is
should we
an
talk about the
announcement.
announcement first? Okay, sorry about that.
No problem. I did not add that though.
Oh, you didn't? I thought you said you did. Sorry.
I added the discussion topic, but
Oh, yeah.
not the announcement.
Yeah. Tim,
Who added the announcement? Tim.
you want to do the honors?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the announcement is that the KEP merged. So we're planning on an alpha in 122. We landed on pod security for the name, or pod security admission control, if you prefer. Yeah, I'm not sure there's much more to say about that. We added a bit more detail over the last week, but nothing, no large changes from what we've discussed previously here. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I'm not sure there's much more that we need to say from an announcement perspective.
Awesome. Well, congratulations and thank you to everyone who put in work there.
Both of those things, congratulations and thank you.
Yeah,
I think
likewise. I think we started talking about this like at least 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Not sure
Seriously.
exactly when.
But that's
Awesome.
internet years, so it really feels like a decade.
Indeed.
Well, that segues nicely into the topic that I wanted to discuss, and I apologize if this was maybe discussed previously in some of the breakout sessions. Now that we do have a replacement planned, do we need, I think my general question is, do we need to make any adjustments to the plan to deprecate and remove PSP? So I think that the initial announcement of the PSP deprecation said that it was slated for removal in 124.
125.
125. So assuming we have an alpha version of PS in not a very good acronym, in 122, beta in 123, are we comfortable with the timing there?
Yeah, so my thought is that since PSP is beta level, as long as the replacement is also beta level by 124 to give a release of overlap, that gives people who are currently using PSP a release where both are, or the new thing is of equivalent maturity or forward-looking support. So 124 at the latest becomes the release where you can do your migration. that gives us 2 releases to get to that point. I would still like to see us work through the beta blockers in time to get to beta by 123. I think that's achievable.
+1.
But I could imagine working through the beta blockers to get to beta level in 123, and then working on the migration tooling or story or documentation or plan for 124. But as long as both of those things are in place by 124, I don't think this needs to affect the removal on 125.
Yeah, the other thing that happened after we set the 125 date is the change in release schedules.
Which only makes the 125 date more attractive, in my opinion.
And more achievable.
Yeah. Awesome.
I don't think
well,
we should promise to push it beyond 125, but I think that we should keep in mind the balance that we're striking if we choose not to push it. Like if we have to, probably we should push it, but we should absolutely strive not to have to.
Yeah, I would actually say I think that's enough time to accomplish this if we prioritize it, and getting rid of beta things we don't intend to graduate should be the top priority. Like we graduated CSRs, and token projection is on track to graduate in 122, or not token projection, bound service account tokens are in 122. Like PSP is kind of the last in progress, eternally in progress thing that this SIG owns. And so I would prioritize this work over starting new efforts in order to make sure that we complete it by 124.
I highly support that. I highly, highly support that. Note that every time I've had a chance to talk about PSP being finally removed, I have been careful to always say it is planned to be removed in 125, because I wanted to ensure that we left the door open to push it, but not very much, only the tiniest crack, because I think pushing it would be bad.
Yeah, I thought the blog post that was done about PSP made some good points. Like, this is the replacement being planned. It doesn't cover everything PSP does. And so if you are depending on mutation aspects of PSP or fine-grained programmable control like PSP, you need to start planning your transition now. And so that's why I think
then you've got a year.
Having a pretty strong statement that like you need to complete that transition before 125. That's the main reason that I want to keep saying, nope, 125 is what you should plan for.
Yep. Yeah. Privately among us, I want to retain the 5% chance that in a very, very bad circumstance, we are open to the possibility of pushing it, but absolutely public facing, we're removing it in 125.
Said on a call that's being posted to YouTube in an hour, but sure.
No, but really.
I would probably be stronger in saying, like, if we don't get it done in time for 125, then it wasn't prioritized, and I don't think it should change the plans to remove in 125.
I don't think it's worth having this discussion right now. I think
I'm convinced, Jordan.
If it comes to it, we'll talk about it later.
It better not come to it. But
yeah.
Yeah. It better not come to it.
I think there are enough people.
Yeah, delete that from the notes.
I think there are enough people who will make sure we don't.
Yeah, sounds good. The other thing that I had written down here was any migration tooling. I did see that some admin tooling was mentioned in the KEP for tasks like namespace labeling. Do we feel like that is sufficient for administrators to easily migrate, or is there anything better that we can do or more that we can do? to help with the migration in 124.
I would like to see, so there's sort of two steps. There's the evaluation of like existing PSPs and saying like which two pod security levels, standards levels, does this fall between? So that evaluation is one step, and having either a tool or a controller that like reflects that information back into API objects in some way. That's one thing. Then the next thing is what do you do with that information? Like, do you select the lower bound so that you don't open up permissions at all at the cost of maybe overly restricting some workloads that currently work? Or do you select the upper bound where you prioritize not disrupting any workloads? And I'm not actually sure what the right thing to do there is.
I don't think the migration tool can be automatic. And if the migration tool isn't automatic, we don't have to select between those. Could have, if it's interactive, you could have like an A spell-ish interface. Like for this one, do you want to pick upper or lower, type L or R? I mean, I don't think we should actually do that, but like ultimately, you know, the sysadmin has to make that choice, like on a per namespace basis.
Or it can be like you can produce a tool that automatically does one given the input of which the admin prefers. Like automatically translate from PSPs to pod security standards and choose the upper bound because I prioritize not disrupting workloads. Or automatically translate and choose a lower bound because I prioritize keeping everything as locked down or more locked down.
Can I suggest a third? Can I suggest another option there, which is both, putting the more
Enforce
restricted
higher
one
and
into
warn lower?
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of like, yeah. So Mike, I would like to have something to give to admins to say, like, if you want to do one of these 2 or 3 things, like just run this controller in the 124 timeframe and it will accomplish that for you. And if you want to do something fancier, then like here's documentation about like what you could do, other things you could do.
Is it like a controller that you install in a cluster, or is it like a one-shot script?
I don't know.
Or is that a parking lot question?
I don't know.
I feel like this should be like a design session just for this alone.
Yeah, I mean, there was a section in the KEP around like migration stuff. I think that would be a great follow-up PR to sort of move that out of unresolved and flush out some considerations.
Yeah,
and I
also,
would envision that happening like after the alpha implementation is solid for 122.
I'd say a lot of this is actually pretty independent of the implementation. Like
Staffing isn't.
Staffing could be. Depends who we're staffing. But also a tool that's kind of like shipped as a independent release. It can also be independent of the Kubernetes release cycle. So this isn't like, we have to land this in 123 or 124 or whatever. Something that can kind of go out iteratively and yeah. It would be nice if at some point we say like, okay, we're happy with this. We're gonna publish a blog post, publish a article on, here's the workflow that we recommend, that sort of thing.
State the PSP documentation to reference the tool for migrating off of PSP, stuff like that.
Speaking of PSP documentation, we had talked about an update to recommend best practices that would make the migration really easy and seamless. Does anyone know if that change ever went in, or is that still something that we're looking for?
I haven't heard of it going in. Honestly, I don't even remember if I don't even remember whether I filed the issue or not.
I think I saw the issue.
Okay.
Yeah, I dropped a link into the website issue.
Awesome. Well, I think that I feel like with all of this, we are at least know what we have to do. So that seems like at this point, we're in pretty good shape. Any other concerns or suggestions at this point?
Do we
Awesome.
want, so for the follow-up items from the CAP, like, do we want to continue to use the replacement meeting for that, or create issues to track?
I'd like to have one final replacement meeting to talk about planning and how to move forward on everything. And we might be able to wrap it up after that.
Okay.
What we've done for other efforts is create a project board specifically for them. So there are enough sort of independent moving pieces here. Like there's documentation bits, there's pod security standards bits, there's like a staging repo and sort of laying out the scaffolding for this, and then these follow-up issues. Like there's a lot of moving parts, and I think once we kind of get stuff underway, some of it will be parallelizable. So I'd probably recommend creating a project board for this that makes it clear, like here's what blocks alpha, here's what blocks beta, here's what blocks GA, here's the backlog, and then we can avoid losing track of stuff.
Okay. I can help with that.
Cool.
Cool. I think that concludes what I wanted to talk about for this item.
Oh, I probably should have put this in the announcements section before we got into this. Just as a heads up, you probably are all aware, but enhancements freeze is tomorrow, and sig-auth currently has 3 items being tracked for 122, and they are the PSP replacement, bound service account tokens going to GA, and external client Go credential providers going to GA. So I'm happy to see 2 long-term projects getting wrapped up in 122, and also happy to see the PSP replacement bits making progress. So those are the 3 items that are being tracked for sig-auth. We are a participating SIG and a couple others, CSI, token injection, maybe that was the only other one, but these 3 are the ones that people are doing like significant work for in sig-auth for 122.
Cool, thank you. Any other items? All right, cool. That concludes today's sig-auth community call. Thanks for joining, everybody. Have a good day. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, do we want to do the, we do have the sweep issue stuff.
Okay.
However, I think we are now doing weekly bug scrubs. Should we migrate these this recurring agenda item to the bug scrub meetings?
I think that would be a good idea. That keeps this focused on like discussion, announcement type items. And if we don't have any a particular week, we can cancel this meeting and just lean on the bug triage meeting.
Perfect.
The bug triage meeting, however, does not look at CI flags or test grid though, just saying. maybe we should, but 30 minutes kind of tight, I guess. Or maybe we should just leave these two here.
Yeah, let's drop the last 3 items because
Okay.
those do get hit by the triage meetings, and we'll just look at flicks and test grids.
But if we do otherwise cancel, that means that we don't look at flicks and test grid for a month sometimes.
Mhm.
So
Hmm.
If it gets really bad, someone will probably find us. Well,
yeah,
they do find
like
us.
Jordan.
Okay. Yeah.
That's very reactive. Right.
So this is not going to be pretty.
Loading.
And
Yikes.
yeah,
Sorry.
this
my-
illustrates a problem we have where you can have very unhealthy jobs that show up in individual SIGs triage buckets. So the cops job is actually very unhealthy generally. And so that shows the individual tests show up in our bucket, but I don't actually think that there's anything for us to do there. So I just dropped a link to the history of that job. So they're actually it's solid red. And if you look at individual failed runs, like it's multiple failures. Yeah.
Sorry, Zoom is taking up like all my bandwidth. Okay, go ahead.
So I'm not really sure what to do with this other than like reach out to whoever owns that job and say like, are you expecting this to be solid red? And if not, like filter it out of the triage board when we look at stuff to try to figure out signal of our own tests. Like the intersection of a SIG's tests and another group's environment or test job is really hard to navigate.
Do we know who owns this? Can we tell from the owner's file?
Yeah, there shouldn't be. There is hopefully a specific enough owner's file and test infra.
How do I get to this from this page? Doesn't seem like it's there. Included here, right?
Right, because it the actual test is labeled sig-auth, but the job is not a sig-auth job. So it doesn't show up in our test grid.
Okay,
It does show up in our clusters.
I see. Maybe we need to add it to this this page, I guess, if we want
So,
Uh-huh.
yeah, I'm not sure.
You're
we don't actually own that job. That's not a job we particularly maintain or care about that environment. Like the other 2 jobs are jobs that we own entirely. Like the only thing that those other 2 jobs are running are our tests. And so like we own those entire jobs.
I see.
The cops job, I linked to the test info down at the bottom where it has the annotations. It's SIG cluster lifecycle cops. So I guess SIG cluster lifecycle.
It does have an owner's file.
Great.
Yeah. So we could ask them to take a look. This should technically show up in their board as well, right?
It should.
'Cause
Yes.
it's here.
But are they looking?
How about if we take a look at the 2 jobs we do own first, and then we'll come back to
Yes.
like what to do about other groups, like tests. So I think the CSI driver tests get looked at in the CSI driver meeting. Am I right about that?
Yes, we should do more of that. Yes.
Okay. If they are being looked at, we don't have to do that here. If they're not,
Okay.
we could try to resolve it here. It's up to you.
Okay. I'll make sure that's a recurring agenda in the meetings. Yeah.
Okay. It looks like
This one's
2 of the tests
fine.
are failing regularly.
Oh wait, never mind. Sorry, I just saw the green check.
Yeah, so the upgrade tests, there are the ones that we care the most about because that's what was testing the bound service account token migration.
Upgrade
And
tests.
that looks good.
Beautiful. Yeah, we're all green.
Suspiciously so. Now I want to like jump in and make sure it's actually running the test.
Right. Yeah.
You want to break it, don't you?
Let's just say I found plenty of cases where tests were very green and we're not actually testing the right thing. So
Okay.
cool. Did you want to jump into the CSI driver tests here or?
Oh, we can do that in the other meeting.
Okay.
Awesome.
So is there any action items from this? I know you were joking, but
I am happy to file a bug and CC everybody in their owner's files and just say that the test
For the cops one? Okay.
Yeah.
oh, okay. Yeah. Sounds good.
Yeah, I think we're done, and we will move those other 3 items to the bug bash.
Triage.
meetings.
Cool. All right. Anything else?
I think that was it.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks,
Thank you.
Rita.
Thank you. Have a good one. Bye.